Imagine a world where the oppressed rise up, overthrow their masters, and build a society of perfect equality. Now imagine that same world, 10 years later. The masters are back. They just have different faces. In 1945, a man named Eric Blair, writing under the pen name George Orwell, published a short book, just 112 pages. It was rejected by 4 publishers. One editor called it unconvincing. Another said the market for animal stories is not very promising. That book was Animal Farm, and it became one of the most powerful, dangerous, and devastatingly accurate political warnings ever committed to paper. This is not just a story about pigs and horses and a farm in England. This is the story of every revolution that has ever consumed itself. Every leader who became the very thing they swore to destroy. Every lie told slowly enough that people forgot the truth. This is the story of power and how it corrupts, without exception. Let's begin. George Orwell had seen the world crack open. He had fought in the Spanish Civil War. He had watched idealistic revolutions curdle into authoritarian nightmares. He had seen the Soviet Union, a nation born from the promise of workers' liberation, become one of the most brutal dictatorships in human history under Joseph Stalin. And the world wasn't just watching it happen. The world was applauding it. Western intellectuals, journalists, politicians, they praised Stalin. They made excuses. They looked away. And Orwell was furious. He wanted to write something that would cut through the propaganda like a knife. Something so clear, so perfectly structured, that even a child could understand what was happening. But also something so layered, so devastating, that it would haunt adults for decades. So he chose the oldest form of storytelling in human history, a fable. On the surface, Animal Farm is a simple story. Animals, a farm, a rebellion. But beneath that surface lies one of the most precise political anatomies ever written. A dissection of how revolutions fail, how language becomes a weapon, and how ordinary creatures can be made to accept their own exploitation, not through force alone, but through the slow, patient manipulation of memory, fear, and language. Every character is real. Every event happened, just not on a farm. Our story begins at Manor Farm. The farmer is Mr. Jones, drunk most evenings, neglectful of the animals, taking everything they produce while giving back as little as possible. The cows are milked until exhausted. The horses work until broken. The hens give their eggs. And for what? Slaughter or starvation. But one night, an old pig named Old Major calls all the animals to the barn. He is ancient, wise, and he knows he is dying. And before he goes, he wants to share a vision. "Comrades," he says, "our lives are miserable, laborious, and short. We are born, we are given just so much food as will keep the breath in our bodies, and those of us who are capable of it are forced to work to the last atom of our strength." Old Major tells the animals that man is their enemy. Man produces nothing. Man consumes everything. And one day, if the animals work together, they could overthrow man and run the farm themselves. All men are enemies. All animals are comrades. 3 nights later, Old Major is dead, but his dream, his animalism, lives on. The revolution comes sooner than anyone expected. Mr. Jones forgets to feed the animals one night. Hunger breaks the last thread of submission. The animals charge. They chase Jones and his men off the farm. And just like that, in a single violent, exhilarating, terrifying moment, they are free. It is one of the most euphoric moments in literature, and one of the most heartbreaking, because we already know how it ends. The animals rename the farm. It is now Animal Farm. They paint the 7 commandments of animalism on the barn wall, words that will become the most tragically ironic sentences ever written. No animal shall sleep in a bed. No animal shall drink alcohol. No animal shall kill any other animal. All animals are equal. And for a brief, golden moment, it works. The harvest is better than anyone can remember. The animals work harder than they ever did under Jones, but they work for themselves. And there is something intoxicating about that. But power has a way of finding who wants it most. Among the pigs, who naturally have taken leadership, two figures dominate. Snowball, brilliant, energetic, a visionary. He wants to build a windmill to electrify the farm, reduce labor, bring them into modernity. Napoleon, quieter, darker, patient in the way that predators are patient. Napoleon says very little about the windmill until the day of the vote, when Snowball stands before the animals and makes his most passionate speech, and Napoleon gives a signal. 9 enormous dogs, raised in secret by Napoleon since they were puppies, trained not to think, only to obey, burst into the meeting. They chase Snowball across the field, and he is never seen again. Just like that. Snowball is gone, and Napoleon is in control. Now the changes come slowly, almost imperceptibly. First, the pigs move into the farmhouse. They sleep in beds. But wait, wasn't that against the rules? The animals go to check the commandments on the barn wall. No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets. Had it always said that? They couldn't quite remember. Surely it had. Then Napoleon announces they will build the windmill after all. But it was Napoleon's idea. Snowball, the animals are told, was a traitor from the beginning, a spy, an agent of Mr. Jones. The pig who delivers these announcements is Squealer, Napoleon's propagandist. Fast-talking, persuasive, brilliant at making the impossible sound reasonable. "Surely you do not want Jones to come back," he says, and the animals are quiet. Because no, they do not want Jones to come back. The windmill is built. It collapses in a storm. It is rebuilt. It is destroyed again, this time by neighboring farmers. Every setback is blamed on Snowball. Every sacrifice is justified by Napoleon. And through it all, the great horse boxer works, and works, and works. His personal motto, "I will work harder." His faith, "Napoleon is always right." Boxer is everything the revolution needed, and everything it failed. He is loyalty without question, strength without direction, faith without discernment. But the betrayal of Boxer is the moment Animal Farm stops being a fable and becomes something deeply, personally devastating. When Boxer finally collapses, old, broken, used up, the pigs promise to send him to a hospital, a veterinarian, care and retirement. The van that arrives says, "Alfred Simmons, horse slaughterer and glue boiler." Squealer later tells the animals the van had been repainted, that Boxer died peacefully in a hospital with the best care, whispering Napoleon's name at the end. And most of the animals believe him. By the end of the story, the 7 commandments have been reduced to a single, final line. The animals go to the barn wall one last night and see it. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And then comes the final image, the most chilling scene in all of English literature. The animals peer through the farmhouse window. Inside, the pigs sit at a table, playing cards, drinking whiskey, laughing with the neighboring farmers, the humans. And as the animals look from pig to man and from man to pig, they cannot tell the difference. The revolution is over. The oppressors have different names. The farm is called the Manor Farm again. Orwell was not writing a fantasy. He was writing a report. Every character in Animal Farm maps with surgical precision onto real historical figures. Old Major is Karl Marx, the visionary philosopher who dreamed of revolution but died before seeing its corruption. Or Vladimir Lenin, the revolutionary who actually sparked it. Napoleon is Joseph Stalin, cold, calculating, willing to eliminate anyone who threatens his power. His very name is a shadow of Napoleon Bonaparte, the general who betrayed the French Revolution and crowned himself emperor. Snowball is Leon Trotsky, the passionate intellectual who was expelled, exiled, and then systematically rewritten out of Soviet history. Just as Snowball is blamed for everything that goes wrong on the farm, Trotsky was blamed for every failure of the Soviet state. Squealer is state propaganda itself. He is Pravda, the Soviet newspaper whose name literally means truth, which published whatever the party needed to be true. The dogs are the secret police, the NKVD, the enforcers who make questioning the leader unthinkable. Moses, the raven who tells stories of Sugar Candy Mountain, paradise beyond the horizon, is organized religion, the promise of reward after death that keeps the suffering patient. And Boxer. Boxer is every ordinary person who worked faithfully for a system that had already decided to discard them. But the deepest symbol in the book is something Orwell never names directly. It is language itself. Watch how each commandment is subtly changed. Watch how Squealer replaces memory with narrative. Watch how 4 legs good, 2 legs bad becomes 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And the sheep just chant it, louder, because they have been conditioned to chant and not to think. Orwell understood something terrifying about political power. It does not begin with violence. It begins with words. Control the language, and you control the past. Control the past, and you control the present. Control the present, and you control the future. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. He would later write that line in his other masterwork, 1984, but he was already thinking it here. Thank you for watching.